"Ma'am, I can't find my daddy," the little girl said. The female CEO ran after her toward the woods. The snow had begun to fall heavier, thickening in slow spirals as twilight sank over the winding forest road. Sierra Langford tightened her grip on the steering wheel, her wipers brushing away slush in steady rhythm. The world outside her windshield had turned a soft, colorless blur of white and gray, broken only by the dark silhouettes of pine trees lining both sides of the road. It was quiet, eerily quiet. No passing cars, no birdsong. Just the occasional groan of wind pressing against the glass and the muffled crunch of her tires over packed snow. Inside the car, the heat was on low. Sierra liked the cold, it kept her alert. Dressed in a cream wool coat, faux fur scarf snug around her neck, and leather boots polished despite the terrain, she looked every bit the image of a woman in control. Her blonde hair, curled loosely from a blowout days earlier, rested on her shoulders as she leaned back into the driver's seat. She had come to these mountains to unplug, to breathe, to escape the static of boardrooms and broken expectations. After a messy breakup and a year of boardroom wars, she had finally hit pause, booked a remote cabin, left her phone on airplane mode, and told her assistant not to call unless the company was on fire. The grocery bag beside her seat rustled as she turned another bend, headlights casting long shadows. She was almost back, just another mile or so, then she would be in her cabin, with a fire crackling and a glass of wine in hand. That was when it happened. A flash of red darted across the road. Sierra slammed the brakes. The car skidded, tires sliding over the icy surface. Snow flew up like a curtain, obscuring her view. Her heart thudded against her ribs. When the car jolted to a stop, she sat frozen, hands trembling on the wheel. Then she saw it. Just beyond the hood, standing in the middle of the road, was a little girl. She was tiny, no more than 5, bundled in a tattered knit sweater too thin for the weather, a red dress peeking out beneath. Her boots were mismatched. Her hair, light brown, messy, clung to her damp cheeks. Her wide eyes shimmered with shock and fear. Sierra threw open the door and ran out into the snow. "Sweetheart," she called, crouching down. "Are you hurt? What are you doing out here alone?" The girl didn't answer. Her lips quivered, her chin tucked into her scarf as she blinked hard, and then she burst into tears. "Ma'am," she hiccuped through sobs, "I can't find my daddy. He said he'd be back, but he didn't." The words hit Sierra like a punch to the chest. Not just the fear in the child's voice, not just the cold that had clearly settled into her bones, but that word, Daddy. Something in it cracked through the ice Sierra had built around herself. She reached out slowly, gently taking the girl's frozen hands into her own gloved ones. "Okay," she said softly. "Let's get you warm first, all right?" The girl nodded, sniffling. Sierra guided her into the front seat of the SUV, turned up the heat, and grabbed a blanket from the back. She wrapped it around her shoulders, then sat beside her for a moment, watching her calm little by little. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Maisie," the girl whispered. "Maisie Clark. That's a beautiful name, Maisie." The girl clutched the blanket tighter. "We live nearby, in a woodhouse, just a little bit away. I know how to get there." Sierra hesitated for only a breath. Then she reached for her keys, turned the engine back on, and gave Maisie a reassuring smile. "Okay then, Maisie. You tell me which way to go." The car rolled forward slowly, tires crunching through fresh snow, guided by the soft voice of a little girl in a red dress, toward something Sierra did not yet understand, but already her heart was steering. The road narrowed as they drove deeper into the woods, trees arching overhead like silent witnesses. Maisie sat bundled in the blanket, breath fogging the window as she pointed. "Down there," she said. "That's our house." Sierra slowed the SUV, turning onto a faint path blanketed in snow. Tires crunched softly as they approached a small wooden cabin nestled among pine trees. It looked like it belonged in a storybook, modest, old, but sturdy. The chimney was still, the porch light off. She parked and glanced around. No other homes in sight, just trees, snow, and the low hum of the engine. Maisie hopped out before Sierra could stop her, running to the front door. She pushed it open without a key. "Daddy never locks it," she said, "in case I need to come in." Sierra followed, boots creaking on the wooden floor. Inside, the cabin was dim, the fireplace was cold, and the only light came from a single oil lamp on a side table. "Hello?" Sierra called out. No answer. Her eyes scanned the room. It was small but tidy, everything in its place. A well-loved couch, a threadbare rug, children's books stacked neatly in a corner, a pair of tiny shoes by the door, a folded blanket on a rocking chair. She let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Whoever lived here clearly cared, for the space and for Maisie. "Where's your dad, sweetheart?" Maisie climbed onto the couch, still wrapped in her blanket. "He went to get firewood. He always goes into the woods. He said he'd be back before dark." Sierra looked at the window. It was already dark. She pulled out her phone. No signal. Of course. Maisie hugged her knees. "Sometimes he takes a long time," she said, though her voice trembled. Sierra knelt beside her. "All right, let's warm up and wait a bit, okay?" In the small kitchen, Sierra found some canned soup and dried noodles. She managed to heat something simple on the stove, spooning it into two mismatched bowls. "Here," she said, handing one to Maisie. "It's not fancy, but it'll help." Maisie ate slowly, spoon tapping the bowl. In between bites, she spoke softly, dreamily. "My mom died when I was little," she said. "I don't remember her voice, just her hair. It smelled like apples." Sierra blinked. "That's a nice memory. Daddy says she was the brave one. That's why I have to be brave too." Sierra swallowed hard. This little girl, so small, carried more than most adults. Her words held no pity, only quiet acceptance. "He says I should never go out after dark, that the woods are tricky, but I waited and waited and he didn't come." Sierra gently brushed her hand over the girl's hair. Something shifted in her chest. Stranger or not, she couldn't just walk away. Outside, wind picked up. Snow slapped the windows and crept through cracks in the frame. The cabin groaned in the cold. Sierra checked her watch. 7:12 p.m. Too long. She stood and paced to the window. Nothing but white. No shadows. No signs. She turned to Maisie. "Do you know where your dad usually goes to get wood?" Maisie nodded. "I can show you." Sierra hesitated. Every instinct said stay inside, but something stronger pushed her. "All right," she said, grabbing her coat. She bundled Maisie tighter, lifted her into her arms, and switched on the flashlight on her phone. The girl wrapped her arms around Sierra's neck. "Ready?" Sierra asked. Maisie whispered into her ear, "I'm not scared when you're here." Sierra opened the door. Cold air hit her face instantly. Trees loomed in every direction, heavy with snow. She stepped forward, into the dark, into the unknown. Not for business, not for herself, but for a little girl in a red dress. The forest closed in around them, a maze of tall pines dusted with heavy snow. Every branch looked the same, every direction a copy of the last. The cold stung Sierra's cheeks as she trudged forward, her boots sinking deep with each step. Maisie clung tightly to her, arms wrapped around Sierra's neck, her small voice whispering near her ear, "Daddy always goes that way." By the tall tree with broken branches, Sierra turned the beam of her phone's flashlight in that direction. Her breath clouded in the air, her arms aching from carrying the girl. But she didn't stop. 10 more steps, 20. Then, "Wait," Maisie whispered. "That's it. That's the tree." The flashlight caught the shape of a crooked pine. One side of its top snapped clean off. Sierra angled the beam lower, then froze. In the snow below the tree, a long, uneven trail had been carved, a drag mark, leading downhill. At the end of it, something lay still. A pile of wood was scattered around a man's body, his limbs twisted unnaturally. Snow had begun to cover him, and the edges of his coat were stiff with frost. Sierra's heart leapt into her throat. "Maisie, stay calm," she whispered. But the girl had already seen. "Daddy," she screamed. Her cries shattered the quiet of the woods. "Daddy, wake up, please! I was so scared." Sierra knelt beside the man, carefully setting Maisie down on a patch of dry snow near the fallen branches. She pressed her fingers to his neck. A pulse, slow but steady. "Thank God," she breathed. There was a gash on his forehead, dried blood crusted near his temple. His skin was pale, lips tinged blue. "Sir?" she said, tapping his shoulder. No response. She looked back at Maisie, whose face was blotchy with tears. "He's alive, baby, but we have to move fast." She wrapped her arms under the man's and began to drag. He was heavy, broad shoulders, solid build. The frozen earth gave no help, only resistance. She got him maybe 5 feet before her legs gave out. Her breath came in short, burning gasps. She collapsed to her knees, snow soaking through her jeans. I can't pull him alone," she whispered. Maisie stood beside her now, small hand clutching Sierra's sleeve. "What do we do?" Sierra stared down at the man, at his still chest. Then she stood, scooping Maisie back into her arms. "We get help." She ran, back through the trees, down the snowy slope, her feet slipping, lungs on fire. The beam of the flashlight jerked wildly with each step. Branches snagged her coat. Maisie buried her face in her neck, too exhausted to cry. They broke through the edge of the forest and reached the roadside. The world was quiet. No headlights, no sound but wind. Sierra spun in place, scanning. Come on. Then, 2 distant lights appeared through the snow. A vehicle, getting closer. She stepped into the road, waving frantically. The SUV slowed, then stopped. A patrol truck. The officer inside rolled down the window, concern etched across his face. "Are you all right?" Sierra pointed toward the woods. "There's a man. He's hurt, unconscious. We need to get him now." The officer was out of the truck before she finished her sentence. He radioed for backup, grabbed a flashlight, and followed Sierra back toward the forest. With the officer's help, they returned to the spot and carefully lifted the man out of the snow. Sierra kept Maisie close, her arms wrapped protectively around the girl as they waited. Back at the cabin, Caleb was laid gently onto the couch. The officer left after ensuring they were safe and promising to send a medic up if needed. Sierra worked quickly. She removed Caleb's wet coat, checked his pulse again, and cleaned the blood from his forehead with a damp cloth she found in the bathroom. She wrapped him in layers, added more wood to the fire, and lit the old lamp. Maisie sat beside her father, eyes wide, holding his hand. Her head slowly drooped to the side, and she fell asleep, cheek resting against his arm. Sierra let out a long breath, her hands still trembling. On the table nearby sat a worn photograph in a wooden frame. It showed Caleb, younger, smiling, beside a woman with kind eyes and hair pulled into a braid. Between them, a toddler beamed at the camera. Sierra picked it up, touched the frame gently. "You did everything you could, little one," she whispered, brushing a strand of hair from Maisie's face. Outside, the wind howled. Inside, the fire crackled. And for now, they were safe. Morning crept into the cabin with a faint, cold light that seeped through the thin curtains. The fire in the stone hearth had burned low, but still pulsed with a gentle glow. The hush of dawn was broken only by the occasional pop of wood and the quiet sound of breath, small and steady. Caleb stirred, a slow, pained movement. His thick brows knit as his eyes blinked open, adjusting to the light. For a moment, he stared at the timber ceiling above him, confusion flickering in his dark eyes. Then he shifted slightly, wincing at the stiffness in his shoulder and the dull ache at his temple. He turned his head and saw her. Maisie, curled up in the armchair beside him, her tiny fingers still wrapped around his large hand, her face slack with sleep. His eyes softened instantly. "Maisie," he whispered, hoarse. "She's okay." Caleb flinched slightly at the sound of the unfamiliar voice. He looked toward the kitchen area and saw a woman, elegant, composed, and out of place in a home like his, setting down a mug of steaming tea. She stepped closer. Her blonde hair was loose, softly curled, her cream coat hung open to reveal a wool sweater. The heat of the fire caught in her gold strands, giving her an almost ethereal glow. "You hit your head pretty hard," she said gently. "You're lucky it was not worse." Caleb's gaze moved from her face to the room, slowly piecing things together. "My daughter. Is she? She's safe." She was scared, but she stayed strong. "You both are safe now." He pushed himself upright with effort, biting back a groan. Thank you. I do not even know your name." Sierra Langford." He nodded slowly, eyes dropping to Maisie again. She stirred but did not wake. "You found her out there? In the snow?" "She ran into the road," Sierra said quietly. "Right in front of my car." Caleb's face fell with guilt. "I told her never to leave the house when I am out. I should not have taken so long. I slipped, must have blacked out." Sierra watched him closely. There was a strength to him, not just physical, a steady presence, even in weakness. "You have nothing to apologize for," she said softly. He gave her a grateful look, though discomfort lingered behind his eyes. She smiled, grabbing a throw blanket from the couch. "I've slept on corporate jet floors between New York and Shanghai. Trust me, I'll be just fine." Caleb watched her settle onto the other end of the couch, her presence filling the space with quiet confidence and something warmer than heat. For the first time in a long while, the cabin felt less like a shelter and more like a home. The next morning dawned crisp and clear. Light filtered through the frosted windows, casting soft gold across the wood-paneled walls. A warm, buttery smell drifted through the air, simple, comforting. Sierra stirred from the couch, stretching beneath the blanket. The chills still lingered, but the cabin now felt like it had quietly welcomed her. In the kitchen, Caleb stood over a cast-iron pan, flipping bread in sizzling butter. Scrambled eggs steamed beside him. A small jar of honey sat open. "Good morning," he said, glancing over. Sierra walked over, rubbing her arms. "Smells amazing. I wasn't expecting this kind of breakfast." Caleb smiled, flipping another slice. "Maisie's picky. Took me a lot of burned toast to get here." She laughed softly and took a seat, watching him work. There was something peaceful about his rhythm, quiet, steady, purposeful, a soft shuffle. Maisie appeared in her pajamas, hair messy, eyes sleepy. "Daddy." She ran to him, hugging his legs. He leaned down and kissed her hair. "You're just in time. Hot breakfast." Maisie turned and spotted Sierra, offering a sleepy smile. "Hi, ma'am." "Good morning, sweet girl," Sierra said. They sat at the round table. Sierra took a bite of the toast and blinked. "This is really good. Like, better than some hotels I've stayed in." Caleb chuckled. "You're being generous." Maisie giggled between bites of egg. After breakfast, Sierra helped clear the table. Maisie tugged her hand, eyes bright. "Can we make snowflakes now?" "I saw paper in the drawer." Sierra grinned. "Absolutely." They sat by the window, folding white sheets into delicate shapes. Maisie snipped clumsily with scissors while Sierra guided her hands. Paper snowflakes began to pile across the table. Caleb watched from the doorway. Maisie's laughter echoed, clear and full of life. It had been so long since he'd heard it shared with someone else. For a moment, he just stood there, watching. Sierra looked up and smiled at him. He smiled back. Later, as the sun climbed and snow melted on the roof, Sierra stood by the door, slipping on her coat. It was time to go. The road would be clear enough. She adjusted her scarf and brushed her sleeves. "Well, I should get back." Caleb nodded, his expression unreadable. Maisie darted into her room and came back, clutching something in her small hands. She held it out to Sierra, breathless. "This is for you, ma'am." Sierra knelt down. Maisie placed a knitted glove into her palm, a small, faded mitten with mismatched yarn patches. "It's warm," Maisie said seriously. "It had holes, but Daddy fixed it. It's still good." Sierra stared at it, emotion welling in her chest. She closed her fingers around the mitten. "Thank you," she whispered. "This is the kindest gift I've gotten in a long time." Maisie beamed. Sierra turned to Caleb and pulled a small card from her pocket. No title, just her name and a personal email written in blue ink. "If you ever need anything," she said, placing it in his hand, "even just stories for bedtime." He took it gently, eyes meeting hers. Something had shifted between them, unspoken, but real. "Thank you," he said, "for everything." Sierra nodded and stepped outside. The cold air met her face, sharp but fresh. She walked toward her car, the little mitten tucked into her coat pocket, closer to her heart than anything else she had packed. She had come here chasing silence, but what she found instead was the quiet sound of something beginning. Back at the cabin she had rented, Sierra stood motionless by the wide window, watching the snow fall beyond the glass. Everything was pristine, clean lines, modern furniture, a fire flickering softly in the stone fireplace. A glass of untouched wine rested on the table beside her. The bathtub steamed in the next room, a silk robe hanging neatly from the door, but the silence felt heavier now. Her eyes drifted to the small knitted glove sitting on the edge of the coffee table. It looked entirely out of place, faded, patched with love, the yarn, slightly frayed around the thumb. Yet it was the only thing in the room that felt alive. She reached for it slowly, running her fingers along the stitches. A sharp trill broke the stillness. Her phone buzzed with a call from her assistant back in New York. "Miss Langford," the voice came quickly. "I'm sorry to interrupt your break, but there's been a shift in the board's votes. You're needed back sooner than expected, by Monday morning at the latest." Sierra pinched the bridge of her nose, exhaling. "Got it. I'll change my flight. Should I reschedule your investor dinner too?" She didn't respond immediately. "I'll let you know." When the call ended, she lowered the phone and sat in the oversized armchair near the fire. The glove still rested in her lap. The city was calling, but it felt like something else was pulling harder. Later that afternoon, suitcase packed, coat buttoned, Sierra climbed into her SUV and began the drive down the winding, snow-dusted road. Pines blurred past on either side. The air was sharp and clear, the sky open and pale. Then, she reached the familiar fork, the turnoff that led to Caleb's cabin. She slowed the car. The wheel trembled slightly under her hands. Her heart beat faster, inexplicably. She reached for her phone, stared at Caleb's number saved under a note she had scribbled the night before. Her thumb hovered above the screen. Then she stopped, slipped the phone back into her coat pocket. "Why am I hesitating?" she whispered aloud. "Why does this feel like leaving something unfinished?" She sat there a moment longer, snow gently collecting on the windshield, the engine idling. And then, without thinking too much, because thinking had gotten her nowhere lately, Sierra turned the wheel. The car reversed slowly, then circled back. She didn't aim for the airport. She didn't head toward the city. She drove back toward the forest, toward the little wooden house buried in snow and pine. As she approached the clearing, the soft crunch of tires on packed snow was the only sound. Her headlights illuminated a quiet scene ahead. Caleb and Maisie were out front, bundled in coats and mittens, working together to shovel the walkway. Maisie was trying to push a snow pile twice her size. Caleb stood beside her, smiling patiently. They both looked up as the SUV rolled into view. Maisie dropped her shovel. Caleb froze. Sierra stopped the car, turned off the engine. The silence returned, but this time it was warm, expectant. She rolled down the window and smiled, brushing her hair behind one ear. "I left something here," she called out, voice lighter than it had been in days. "Not sure what it is yet, but I'd like to find out." Caleb stepped forward, his face unreadable, then slowly broke into a smile. Maisie clapped her mittens together. Sierra opened the door and stepped out into the snow. And for the first time in a very long time, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. When Sierra stepped out of the SUV, Caleb looked like he was about to speak. His brows were slightly furrowed, his expression unsure. But before he could say anything, Sierra raised her hand and shook her head lightly. "Don't make it weird," she said, her voice steady but soft. "I just don't like leaving things halfway." Caleb blinked, then let out a small breath, half laugh, half sigh, and nodded. There were no grand explanations, no forced gratitude. She came back not as a guest or a savior. She simply returned, and somehow that felt right. That afternoon, the three of them took a short walk behind the cabin. The snow had softened under the pale winter sun. Light filtered gently through the pine branches, casting golden streaks across the forest floor. Maisie stomped through fresh snowdrifts with glee, dragging Sierra by the hand while Caleb followed behind, hands in his coat pockets, eyes warm. There was no rush, no deadline, just footsteps, laughter, and the soft sound of wind brushing through trees. That evening, after Maisie had fallen asleep curled under a patchwork quilt on the couch, Sierra sat by the fireplace wrapped in a thick wool blanket. Her hair was loose, golden waves tumbling around her shoulders. The firelight flickered against her skin, giving her a softer look than the crisp, calculating woman Caleb had met just days ago. He was sitting in the armchair across from her, elbows resting on his knees, watching the flames more than her, but not by much. After a long pause, he asked quietly, "Back in the city, were you happy?" Sierra didn't answer right away. Her gaze dropped to the mug in her hands. "I was successful," she said finally. "That's not the same, is it?" The words hung in the air, raw and honest. For the first time, Caleb saw her not as someone passing through his life, but someone who had been carrying weight for far too long. He didn't offer advice or try to fix it. He simply gave her a small nod and stood, walking to the fire to add another log. The quiet that followed wasn't awkward. It was warm, familiar. Before heading to bed, Caleb returned with something in his hand, a small wooden cup, smoothed by hand, her name etched in uneven but careful letters on the side. "Just so you know," he said, placing it gently on the table in front of her. "You belong here now." Sierra looked up, startled. She stared at the cup for a long moment, then picked it up slowly, cradling it in both hands. It had been years since someone had made something just for her. Not a gift with a logo, not a perk, something real, something that said, "You matter." She held the cup close for a beat longer than necessary, then whispered, "Thank you." Later that night, long after the fire had settled into glowing embers, Sierra sat in the tiny guest corner of the cabin, her notebook open on her lap. She wasn't sure why she was writing. Maybe to make sense of what she was feeling, maybe just to hold on to it a little longer. She wrote, "Maybe home isn't a place. Maybe it's a quiet fire, a small voice, and someone who doesn't ask you to change." She closed the notebook and pressed it against her chest. For the first time in years, Sierra Langford didn't feel like she was running towards something, or away from it. She just felt still. And stillness, she realized, might be exactly what she needed to begin again. The next morning, the world was still, blanketed in a soft white quiet. The snow had stopped. The sky above was pale blue, streaked with gold. It was the kind of morning that whispered of beginnings and goodbyes. Sierra woke early. She sat on the edge of the small guest bed, letting the hush of the cabin settle around her one last time. She folded the wool blanket, packed the few things she had, and placed the carved wooden cup gently on the kitchen table. No note, just the cup. A small goodbye that did not need words. Outside, she brushed the snow off her SUV and was about to open the door when Caleb appeared beside her, holding a small wooden box in his calloused hands. It had no ribbon, no card, just simple craftsmanship. "I was going to give you this last night," he said, opening the lid. Inside was a wooden keychain, hand-carved. On it were 3 small figures, a tall man, a woman with long hair, and a little girl. All 3 stood beneath a tiny roof carved above their heads. Caleb looked almost embarrassed. Maisie drew it. "I just made it real. Thought you might want to keep a piece of our messy little life." Sierra stared at the figures, then up at him. Her eyes glistened, but she said nothing. She got into the car, turned the key. The engine hummed to life. Caleb stepped back, Maisie beside him in her little red coat, waving. Sierra pulled away slowly, tires crunching over packed snow. The road opened ahead, winding through trees, clean and empty. Freedom, return, her old life waited, but after only a few meters, she hit the brakes, a deep sigh. Then, she smiled. Screw it. She reversed the car, rolled down the window, and called out, "I make terrible pancakes, but I'm really good at coffee." Maisie cheered. Caleb's quiet smile widened. Not long after, the kitchen of the little cabin was filled with the aroma of frying butter and brewed coffee. Caleb flipped pancakes at the stove. Maisie sat on the counter, kicking her legs and giggling. Sierra stood barefoot in thick-knit socks, her hair a little messy, a coffee mug in hand. No suits, no boardrooms, no pressure, just warmth, and light, and laughter. The three of them gathered around the wooden table, sun pouring through the frosted windows, catching steam rising from plates. Forks clinked gently. Syrup dripped slowly. Sierra laughed as Maisie made a face at her lopsided pancake. There were no grand gestures, no confessions, just a small, shared moment. After breakfast, Caleb stepped out to the porch, the door creaking behind him. The snow had melted in patches, revealing soft earth below. Winter was still here, but it was changing. He turned back and saw Sierra leaning in the doorway, the wooden keychain in her hand. She looked at him and said softly, almost to herself, "Turns out, what I was looking for wasn't out there. It was in a little red coat, running into the road." They didn't need to define what this was. They didn't need to say, love. Some things were stronger than words. No one saved anyone. Just three people who found each other on a snowy evening and stayed, not out of obligation, but because they chose to. A story without tears, but full of warmth, just enough to thaw even the coldest winter heart. If this story warmed your heart even just a little, don't forget to show some love by hitting the hype button and subscribing to Soul-Stirring Stories. We bring you tales that go beyond words, stories of quiet courage, unexpected kindness, and the moments that change everything. From snowy roads to warm cabins, we believe every soul has a story worth telling. So stay with us for more emotional journeys like this one. Your support means the world and keeps these heartfelt stories coming. Subscribe now, and let's keep stirring hearts, one story at a time.